So the chapter we're on is called A Fruitful Walk. And here they talked about Noah a little bit. And I wanna start with him, then go off from there. Noah listened to God. Noah, and so I looked up, Noah. Noah was 500 years old when he had three sons. Now, either he had triplets or they just lumped them all in the same time, and no, he had three sons. But Noah had three sons. He was 500 years old. Normally, sometimes we say that's when he started building the ark. I'm not sure when he built it, but we know he built the ark. So we're going to go to this right here. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people. How would you like to be the only person on earth that God looked with favor to? And I was thinking about all these other people, and I think about it every day, like at work and things like that, how God is in my life, but these other people, what takes the place of God in their lives? So we're going to go with a little bit with Noah here. Noah was a righteous man among the people of his time. He walked faithfully with God. Noah had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Then we get down to God's telling Noah, I'm going to destroy the world. And I kind of found it, because I've found it a little bit hilarious, a little bit. I laughed a little bit. So God says, he says, first, I'm going to destroy and kill all the people, everything, wipe it all out. He says, so make for yourself an ark out of cypress wood. So I'm thinking to myself, Noah's going, cabin cruiser for a couple months. Yeah, we can do that. 8 of us on a boat. We're good. Perfect. Now I'm just being in Noah's mind and saying this. Then God says, this is how how to build it. You are to make a ark out of cypress wood, make rooms in it, coat it with pitch on the inside and out. Okay, one thing we know is, did Noah follow God's instructions to the letter? What would have happened if Noah said, we really don't need to put pitch here? Yeah, no, that'll be all right. Would it have been all right? No. Yeah, Noah followed what God told him to the letter. But this is where I said to myself, holy moly. We think Noah, we're thinking, well, there was no Lowe's at the time. Noah couldn't order cypress wood delivered to the job site. So this is how you to build it. And this is when Noah probably passed out. You are to build at 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. So that equals to about 450 foot long, 75 foot wide, 45 foot high, somewhere in there. Noah's going, what? I mean, I know, well, you want me to build, what are we hauling in the first place? Because Noah didn't have that information yet. God's just giving him information. This is what you're going to do. Noah's story impresses me so much for a lot of reasons. One, Noah, to the letter, what God told him to do. Second, the story says God found favor in Noah, but his family came along. So he had to find favor in Noah and his family. Noah had 3 sons. His sons had 3 wives, but could you imagine a period where you're dating this girl and, so what are you going to do? Well, me and my dad are building this boat out here and it's going to rain. And that dad would say, no, 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 not him. So you had more than his 3 sons following him. You had the 3 daughters and his wife. You had 8 people in total that did exactly what God told them to do. To me, it's more amazing story just when you read it with a different shade of lenses on, because a 400-foot boat, 450-foot boat, that is gigantic. They say he did it in about 100 years. Is that what you estimating? Just like I said before, but I mean, I just can't fathom building a boat that big. The amount of wood you would need, the amount of pitch you would need, the amount of everything else that put this boat together you would need. And if you've ever been to the Ark up in northern Kentucky, uh, and you walk through it, it's amazing because they built it as close as they could build it to what the Bible gave as dimensions and how it was to be built. So they didn't have bolts and nuts back then, so they had pins. So they had to make these probably like a dowel pin, probably about that long, and they had to make thousands upon thousands of them. When you start looking into a story and you see what Noah did, one, he listened to God. Two, he followed exactly what God said. God tells us to do things. I'm going to read Galatians 5:22 and 23. That's the fruits of the Spirit verse. Then we're going to go off a little bit from there. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there are no laws, which tells you you cannot go wrong by following that set of instructions. As I was looking at this last time, I'm saying, so then we look at, so let's just say joy. What would the opposite of joy be? Hate? Sadness? Sorrow? Sorrow? The opposite of love, of course, would be hate. Peace. And I'm going to say violence. Now, forbearance. I'm really not sure what is forbearance. Can somebody help me here? Patience. So I guess the opposite of no patience is no patience. I don't have any patience either. Man, I'm not good with patience. Kindness. When I think of that, I'm just thinking in my head, I went straight to the Grinch. You know, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. There we go. It's just all in it for himself. And at work, when I tell you that people don't fill their lives with God, I see a whole lot of being in it for themselves and don't care about what's going to happen to anybody else. faithfulness, godly, goodness, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And there's no laws against any of these things. Where do we get in trouble? When we variate from this set of verses. I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm studying, I'm going, wow, this is just amazing how God set things up. And God really didn't give us a ton of rules. And people say, well, there are rules. Okay, there are, but you got to understand that love God, love your neighbor, love God, and love your neighbor. Pretty simple. And follow these fruits of the Spirit. Because if you do all those things, you won't have to worry about any of the rules. Right? I mean, kids at school. My wife had certain rules in her class. And as long as kids did what my wife set up as the rules, they were fine. When they didn't, my wife was quick to stomp it. And sometimes that would be you have to set out this session of whatever we're doing, whether it be kickball, tetherball, whatever they're doing. Nope, you can't because you broke the rules. I think sometimes we need that. We need those kinds of timeouts. Could you see God just picking some timeout? Would we learn anything? I don't know. So first, this walk, this fruitful walk we're doing, is a slow and long walk. We're in it for the long haul. Um, whoever claims to live in Jesus, whoever claims to live in him must live as Jesus lived. This is so in our lives, this is what we're supposed to do. Live like Jesus lived. Pretty simple. I mean, you would think. In Romans 8:3, for what the law was powerless to do because it was weakened by the flesh, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh to be a sin offering, and so he condemned sin of the flesh. Excuse me. So, Jesus sent his Son down here for us to live a life that would be without sin. God created us not for, uh, somebody said one time, we're like zoo creatures. We're in God's menagerie, in God's zoo. I said, what? I said, well, that's a really weird way to think of something like that. I would never think that. God didn't create us so he could just move us around and watch us and do whatever. He created us for one thing, to love him. And he was so, I'm going to say distraught when he destroyed the world, which is pretty close to what it would be, because he basically told Noah, I will never do that again. So this is where we get to Jesus. And we can see it through the Old Testament. If we read and we just pay really close attention, we can see how it goes. Okay. One In order the righteous requirement of the law might be fulfilled before, in order that the righteous requirement of the law might be fully met in us who do not live according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. See again, so if we are living a life and we're doing what God wants us to do, we are not living in the flesh. We are living in the Spirit. So now, what do we look at when we're trying to live a life? See, our brains are a terrible thing. You know that commercial brain's a terrible thing to waste. Well, it is, but our brain also gets us in trouble. Behavior and desire. There are a lot of things we can think about that we ought not to think about. And the closer you get to following the fruits of the Spirit, the closer we will get not thinking about those things. If we're in the fruit of the Spirit, in Christ, those things are wiped out of our minds. But we're human. I'm going He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require you to do, require of you, to act justly and to love mercy and walk humbly with your God. Now that's Micah 6:8. In the Old Testament, we're told, listen, live like this and have mercy on people. Don't, I think we live in a world where a lot of times you see people want to take judgment in their own hands. Well, he did this to me, I'm going to do this to him. That's not how God's told us to live. Uh, Sometimes bad things happen to us. Some bad people do bad things to us. Uh, my dad told me one time, he says, when a boy punches you in the nose, laugh at him. He said, you really want to make him mad? Laugh at him. And my dad was right. You can't fight your way out of every room because you've always heard 10 foot tall and bulletproof. There's somebody 11 foot tall and bulletproof. So it's better if we just follow what God has asked us to do. And when somebody makes you mad, okay. Then you might add on there, I'll pray for you. And if that doesn't make him mad, it's going to make him stop and think, who is this guy? What's he talking about? That he would say that to me? In Psalms 37:4, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. We take delight in the Lord, and he gives us what our heart wants. This is where, if you're following the fruits of the Spirit, your heart's going to want to be with God, be with Jesus. And he can give us those things because that's what he told us he was going to do. I will be with you always unto the ends of the earth. Okay, the world and its desires, they pass away. This world is going to end. But whoever does the will of God lives forever. I think about things, and I think about the terrible plane crash that happened just this week. 274 or something like that people were killed. One person survived. That is just awful. But I think about the things we don't hear. The people in the Sudan that are being killed, Christians being killed, drug out in the street and being killed. I can look in the Old Testament and see where they were persecuting the Jews. It hasn't changed. Hasn't changed at all. They're doing that today. That's why we have a big battle going over in Iran and Israel right now. Because of that exact reason. A battle. We're going to have to be ready for a battle. How do we fight it? How do we fight evil? How do we you get tired in your mind when you think about all the things going on in this world. Sadness, famine, things that we think ought not go on. Why can't everybody why can't everybody just get along? We can't. They couldn't in the Bible times. They have never been able to get along. So where we got to get along is our group of Christians, family. That's why it is so important to meet together. I can tell you when I'm unable to be at church, that whole day is like, I don't like not being able to be with my church family. Today, everybody's here. Everybody but Corey and Sam. My kids are here. Katie, Jake, Matthew, Bo. We have Cole with us this weekend. What a blessing God has given us, a family for us to love and who love us. So Cole, I was doing this lesson. I said, come here. I said, look at my tablet. So I'd put the verse in and highlight it and then put it on my tablet. And I would read it and make sure he was listening. Because I want him, because Corey and Sam have yet to understand how important it is. And we work on them on a daily basis. When Mary goes, she takes them to church. It's important that our families worship God. Very important. And it's a battle. It is a battle. Now, this is the one I really liked. Grafted into Jesus. Doyle, you know what grafting is, don't you? You can take a tree, you could take an apple tree, put a notch in there, you could take a peach thing and you could graft it into the apple tree and it will grow. You see it a lot with different types of grapes. They'll graft the grapevine, put a different variety in there, and that's how they make different varieties of grapes. Grafting that piece into the main trunk. To me, when I heard that, I said, whoa, I am the vine and ye are the branches. Being grafted into Jesus, what they tell you to do with something that's not producing, what do you do with that? You trim that sucker off. You got a dead branch, get rid of it. And why do you do that? Because if it's diseased, it's going to make the whole tree diseased. And that's what happens when a group of friends, Christian friends, when you got one in your group that is just really not what he should be, or there has to be a way you can say, listen, I love you, I really do, but I, I don't go with what you're going with because I don't believe it. That's what we have to do. That's what being grafted to Jesus, we got to take care of that. We are tied to Jesus. And when we hurt, he hurts. See, that's one amazing thing to me, because I never, ever understood it until, I don't know, probably when my mom passed. When he hurts, when I hurt, he hurts. Because we're not made for that. We're made to be his people and to spread the love and joy. Producing fruitful desires. I got a couple more verses and we will be done. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify the Father in heaven. I know we always say, if you've ever been in a cave, how dark it is. That's dark. But you can light one match, and one match gives off an amazing amount of light inside that dark cave. Now, I've read a lot of books about Mammoth Cave when they first went and did all this stuff. They were with candles. Ain't no way. Because if you've ever been in a cave and you walk by a certain little thing and all of a sudden you feel this breeze going by your head, and a breeze and a candle, they just don't work together real well. Blow that candle right out. God knows them breezes are coming. That's why he tells us to be together. So when that breeze comes and blows my candle out, I have a friend that comes back and lights it for me. So I can stay the path and stay producing fruitful desires. One last thing, our pride. We all have pride. When I was younger, it was a whole lot worse. Now I'm like, okay. It's not that I don't have any pride, but I have a different set of priorities. what I might want isn't one of those priorities. Not that I don't get things that I would like to have. I have my new truck. I wanted a truck forever. Now, pride would say I drove around in a little red Focus for 9 years. Well, my pride couldn't work on that because then I would be taking things out of my family's. That money comes from somewhere. So if I bought my truck, I would be taking money from my family. My pride, that wasn't anything to do with my pride. It was about doing what my family needed me to do, knowing that somewhere down the road, I was going to be able to get the things that I wanted and needed, because we don't always get what we want. But my pride had nothing to do with it. And our pride is the thing that gets us in a lot of trouble sometimes. And I've seen it in church. I've seen it in my friends who walked away from church basically because somebody said something when he was teaching. Somebody told him he was wrong. He taught something and somebody come up and told him he was wrong. And they shouldn't be teaching like that. Well, my friend told me what he said, and I'm going, well, dude, you were wrong. I said, it has not, when you're wrong, you're wrong. That's just the way it is. We all remember Fonzie, he couldn't say the word wrong or sorry. I think our pride works into that too, though, saying you're sorry. Too much pride, you can't say I'm sorry. Our pride only gets us in trouble. I'm one, if I ever act prideful, I want somebody to tell me that I'm doing it. Because I'm not going to react like my friend did, because I'm a house, right? And I only can see out with these two eyes. I can't see what on the outside. Only people I can trust to do that is Chris and Roger and Remmel and people that come up and say, hey, dude, your shutters are getting a little creaky there. You might need to go fix those. You might need to fix this because you were wrong in this aspect. That is what makes, and to me, it's one of the things that makes teaching so hard, is because I don't want to say anything that might lead somebody down the wrong path. The Bible tells us teachers are held to high account because of that exact reason. I can't let my pride say, no, you can't teach no more because you might say something wrong. I can't do that. As Roger knows, it takes a lot of time to study for these lessons. I sat down yesterday, Cole was at the house for 2.5 hours finishing up. Time I could have spent with him playing Legos or whatever he wanted. I worked on my lesson because that is what I was called to do. I'm called to teach on every third Sunday. And if I know I'm going to do that and I wait until Sunday morning, I get up and I run in here, and that ain't going to work. I appreciate you all's time for listening, and I love you all. Y'all go enjoy your families and have a great day today. And happy Father's Day to all the dads. Forgot to say that. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon.